Hi everyone, meteorologist Chad Evans here with a look at your Sunday edition of your daily weather forecast video, sponsored always by Trent Johnson State Farm. Trent is my agent.com. Now these are the CoCoRaHS observer totals from a little earlier this morning, and it shows anywhere from 2 inches here south of Roselawn to 3.5 in parts of West Lafayette to 5.7 a few miles east of that location, 5.2 Southside Lafayette, but a few miles north of that location, 4.2, and then I got an 8 here south of Advance near Jamestown, but only 2.5 just northeast of there near Lebanon, and then I had a 3.8 at Cayuga, but if you go just across the state line, I had an observer, a CoCoRaHS observer of 7.3. So what's with the odd totals that vary so much? Well, we didn't have any mesoscale banding in this storm really, and we didn't have any convective type snow. When you have frontogenetical banding or convective type snow, you will get variability like this. But in this storm, we didn't really see that. It was very gradual, very gradual decrease in the snow from south to north. So I think what's happening here is, and I noticed it here even at our house, the snow is so dry and powdery to fluffy that it blows around very easily. And we've had some winds gusting more than 25, more than 30. So we've had quite a bit of blowing and drifting snow, and some of the blowing and drifting I think is kind of subtle. You go out here at our place, you know, we've got anywhere from 8 inches to like 4. So the best thing to do in this case is you've got to look at how much liquid has come down. I'll show you that here in just a second. But these were the earlier totals from this morning. Now if I take the liquid amounts, I get 51 hundredths via the radar from Indianapolis here near Rockville. And then I go up to Tippecanoe County, Greater Lafayette, 36 hundredths of an inch of liquid. And then I go up to Rochester, it's 2/10. And when I figured up the snow ratios based on crystals and the dynamics that will make snow, I came up with about a 15-to-1 ratio in the forecast. And when I took these liquid amounts, and I took the liquid amount from my snowfall total here at the house, I came up with about 15-to-1 ratio. So I ended up with about 35 hundredths of an inch of liquid here and 5.1 inches of snow. So it gets a little complicated when it's blown and drifted about, but one of the best things you can do when you have blowing and drifting issues is take your radar liquid estimates and compare it to your totals to see if you did have a mesoscale band or a convective band, and we just didn't have that. So from what I'm gathering from totals right now, they vary from anywhere from about 1.5 inches here at Lake Village to as much as about 7 inches down towards southeastern Park and down into Boone counties. And then here in Tippecanoe County, anywhere from about 4 to about 6 inches of snow has come down. Now the main system snow is already pulling away as of noon. One thing that surprised me about this system was the fact that already by noon we had a lot of our system total. And it's already kind of pulling away. This is the back edge. A lot of this is, at least a good chunk of this is not reaching the ground, but I want you to notice something. One, little snow starting to form here, and this little arc of snow starting to form down here. I filtered out what likely isn't hitting the ground and what is hitting the ground with the radar. So here's your main system snow over here. This is pulling away. We got a break, but there's this arc of snow, this little trough feature right here that's kind of doing this, kind of pivoting in. This is very similar to a Norland trough, as I've been talking about. And also there's a little lake effect just starting to form. So this pulls away, we get the break, and then this Norland trough in combination with some developing lake effect still has to come through this afternoon and into this evening. And then this evening, everything pulls away, and the only thing we're gonna have left is a few snow showers up in the far north from lake effect. So this still has to pivot through. And when we, one of the best things we can do to see what the snowfall rates are, we can look at radar, but visibility at airports is very important. So here's Crawfordsville, and here's over towards Rockville. You'll notice the Edgar County Airport, the visibility is actually up more than 10 miles. So that's the break we're in. Here is that little arc of snow. Visibility is about 1 to 2.5 miles with this. Now it's a lot heavier down here in southern Missouri. Some of these visibilities, one airport had half-mile visibility, but if you look at some of the road cameras here, this is good quarter-mile visibility in southern Missouri. This part of this trough has to come through our area. I think this heaviest area, that is headed for Evansville and Vincennes, Indiana, which, by the way, one thing that I have noticed with the totals is that some of the highest totals in southern Indiana anyway are just north of I-64. That's where we've had more than a foot. I'll show you that here in a second too. So I showed you the trough. Now we have some lake effect developing. It's just starting to develop in the Chicago area. No, out here towards Carroll Stream, visibility is 9 miles, but once you get closer to downtown and the lake effect, visibility locally has dropped to 3/4 of a mile at O'Hare, and Midway it's 1.25 miles. So that's some of that lake effect that's starting to develop as well. We can see kind of the lulling getting underway. Not much happening right now. Airport Road in West Lafayette. This is northwest of Hillsdale. That's Highway 63. This is Fair Oaks at 14 and I-65. That's actually in pretty good shape. Again, they've had less snow in the far northwest. And this is the Boone-Clinton County line, Interstate 65 right here. That would be just north of the rest area. Now, this was a graphic I showed you yesterday, and this is one thing that surprised me about this storm. Snowfall by noon. I took this particular model data anywhere from 1.5 inches to as much as 7 inches from northwest to southeast. So yes, that part is correct in and of itself. However, I only had near 4 inches in Lafayette, and we've had about 4.5, 6 inches of snow. So there's a little bit more at noon than I thought there necessarily would be. And even up here in around Winnemac, we've had about 3 inches of snow reported, and this particular data had about 2. So this was the original forecast I had for snowfall, 3 to 6 most of the area, 1.5 to 3 up here, and a little pocket of 1.5 to 3 here. And then I had your 6.9s from Cayuga, Crawfordsville, south of Frankfort to Tipton. I think now, and I covered up this model data with totals I think, what I'd like to do is shift the 6 to 9 just a hair north, because we have this final wave that has to come through, and that's going to add another inch or 1.5 inches. So we're going to add to the totals. Now up in the northwest, I think we could get another 1 to 3 inches of snow up here. So I think these totals look good. So this is the new snowfall total map. I think the 6 to 9 inch line, let's push that up into parts of Greater Lafayette, Attica, Covington, Frankfort included, Burlington included, Kokomo included. I think the more than 9 inch amounts certainly going to be Indianapolis area, Terre Haute, southward of course. We'll still keep the 1.5 to 3 near Lake Village and Enos, but 3 to 6 up here. I have Rensselaer at 5 because remember you've got lake effect and that arc of snow has to come through. And remember, the rest of the area, we're going to add a little bit more snow, 1 inch, 1.5 inches of snow from that Norland type trough coming through. And then again, some of the lake effect, especially here in the northwest. So lots to go through, just a lot to talk about. And another tidbit of information, I was telling you that the heaviest band of snow, more than a foot, rather than being right along Interstate 64, it was a little bit north. It kind of shifted about 30 to 40 miles north. So you get down into the Evansville area in far southern Indiana, They actually had a lot of sleet. It's about 6-7 inches of snow and sleet. But once you get north of Interstate 64 and that US 50 corridor area, more than a foot is actually pretty common right in that zone. And there'll be more to come. So you're going to have 12 to 18 inch amounts paralleling US 50 in southern Indiana and just north of Interstate 64. So just letting you know that, because if you've got travels, if you got to go to Louisville or Evansville, or you got travel to Nashville or whatever, that band in the southern part of the state is going to be really nasty. So the snow picks up for a time this afternoon, and then this evening starts to taper back off. Temperatures running generally in the teens. Wind chill 5 below to 4 above. Tomorrow morning, 4 below 0 with wind chills 29 below to 16 below. So dangerously cold in the morning. Again, with this wind, you will have some more blowing and drifting snow. But at least we'll have sunshine. A high, though, of only 6 above tomorrow. That is it. It's going to be brutally cold right through the afternoon. And then after 6 below 0 and rising Monday night, 23 Tuesday, blowing and drifting snow Wednesday, a few scattered snow showers, maybe a few dustings, 15 then falling. We level off at 7 and get snow on Wednesday night to Thursday morning. That could produce some very minor accumulation. We may get some places with an inch of snow from that. Blowing and drifting, another issue. The winds finally relax some on Friday, so blowing and drifting not as much of an issue then with 9. And then we got to watch next weekend. There is a clipper and there is a storm trying to form near the Gulf of Mexico, near Texas. If they phase, we'll have to wait and see. We may get snow, bigger snow up into our area. I think at the very least, we'll get a clipper in here and we'll get some snow out of the deal. And then brutally cold air will hang on.